Assisted Suicide Crash Course, Off-the-Record Revelations Revealed, Philosophy and Religion. Dear new friend, let's discuss the sacredness of every life versus one's personal autonomy. The debate over assisted suicide ranges from finger-wagging judgment to a laissez-faire live and let die philosophy. The debate weighs compassion against conscience, autonomy against authority, and mercy against morality. It's a topic that tugs at the heartstrings and stirs the soul, forcing us to ask, when does the burden of life become too heavy to bear? And who gets to decide when it's time to pass over? Daniel Kahneman was a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist suffering from dementia who died by assisted suicide in Switzerland in 2024. According to Kahneman, happiness is determined by factors like your health, your family relationships and friendships, and above all, by feeling that you are in control of how you spend your time. Why watch this video? You'll get Number 1, a crash course in humanity's greatest thinkers. Number 2, religious wisdom beyond Scripture's quotes. Number 3, the aha moment of cultural context. Number 4, empathy for all sides. Number 5, clarity on legal and public opinion realities. Number 6, fuel for your own moral reasoning. Part 1, Philosophy's Fork in the Road.
Thanks, mate. I'll narrate this section and a couple of others. Philosophers have long grappled with the ethics of assisted suicide, with a variety pack of answers. Some see it as the ultimate act of human freedom, while others warn it's a slippery slope toward moral chaos. Take the utilitarians, for instance, who measure right and wrong by the yardstick of happiness. Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill would argue that if assisted suicide ends unbearable suffering, then it's not just permissible, it's the right thing to do. After all, why prolong agony when peace is within reach? Picture a man trapped in a burning building. If the flames are too fierce, isn't it more humane to let him leap than to watch him burn? But then there's Immanuel Kant, the stern moral lawgiver, who would shake his head and wag his finger in disapproval. To Kant and his deontological view, human life isn't a commodity to be discarded when inconvenient. Life is sacred, a duty we owe to ourselves and to the moral order. Suicide, in his eyes, is a betrayal of reason, a violation of the very dignity that makes us human. Imagine a soldier deserting his post. Kant would say that choosing death is like abandoning your post in the grand march of morality. Then there are the virtue ethicists who care less about rules and more about character. Aristotle might ask, what kind of person chooses death? Is it an act of courage, facing the inevitable with clear eyes? Or is it cowardice, a refusal to endure life's trials? The answer, he'd say, depends on the story behind the suffering. A warrior who falls on his sword to avoid dishonour is one thing. A man who gives up at the first sign of hardship is another. And then there are the existentialists who see life as a blank canvas. Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus would argue that in a world without inherent meaning, we create our own purpose. And sometimes, that purpose might be choosing when to exit the stage. If life feels like an endless, absurd play, is it so wrong to write your own final act? Part 2. Religion's reverence for life. If philosophy offers a variety of perspectives, religion serves a stricter menu. This menu is one where divine commandment often outweighs human desires. Islam takes a firm stance on assisted suicide. Nor can a soul die except by Allah's leave, the term being fixed as by writing. Quran 3:145. Suffering, in this view, is a test of faith, and to cut it short is to defy divine wisdom. The Catholic Church is also firm, saying that life is a divine gift, and to end it prematurely, this is playing God. They note that one of the 10 commandments is, "Thou shalt not kill." Pope John Paul II called euthanasia a false mercy, a betrayal of trust in God's plan. Yet some progressive Christians argue that Jesus himself was a healer who relieved suffering. In extreme cases, allowing a painless death might be the most Christ-like choice. Judaism treads carefully between compassion and commandment. Traditional halakha forbids suicide, but some rabbis permit withholding extraordinary measures in terminal cases. It's the difference between pulling the plug and not inserting it in the first place, which is a fine line, but an important one. So, over in Hinduism, karma is clear. Taking one's life disrupts the soul's journey, potentially leading to a worse rebirth. Imagine jumping off a train before your stop. You might end up somewhere far worse than where you started. Yet, the ancient practice of pryopavesa, voluntary fasting unto death, shows there are exceptions when death is inevitable and consciousness is clear. Buddhism emphasizes compassion and the alleviation of suffering, dukkha. However, actively ending a life, including one's own, is generally seen as a violation of the first precept to refrain from taking life. This can have negative karmic implications. While the cessation of suffering is a goal in Buddhism, it's typically achieved through spiritual practice and understanding rather than by intentionally ending life. Yet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has hinted that if the intention is pure compassion, then assisted suicide might be permissible.
Part 3. The heart of the debate. Beneath all these arguments lies a fundamental tension, which is, whose life is it anyway? Supporters of assisted suicide frame it as the ultimate act of autonomy. My body, my choice. Some of the things people in pain say are, I just want it to be over. I don't want to be a burden. And I want to die with dignity. Advocates say it is a person's right to say, enough. Some loved ones say, no one should suffer like that, and we support their decision because we love them. They point to places like Switzerland, Canada, and 10 U.S. states where assisted dying is legal. Supporters argue that allowing a peaceful death is the mark of a compassionate society. Critics, however, warn of a dangerous, slippery slope effect. If we normalize assisted suicide for the terminally ill, it could expand to the depressed, the imprisoned, or the elderly who feel like burdens. Some ask, will they come for the disabled next? And then there's a question of suffering itself. Is pain always an enemy to be defeated, or can it have meaning? Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote that even in the darkest torment, humans can find purpose. But does that mean humans should have to find purpose?
Part 4. Jack Kevorkian's Efforts and Legacy. Let's now discuss Dr. Jack Kevorkian, the most infamous, polarizing and relentless crusader for assisted suicide in modern history. Love him or loathe him, the man who some called Dr. Death forced America to stare wide-eyed and sweating into the moral abyss of euthanasia. With his rusty van, his homemade suicide machine, and his unshakable defiance, he became the outlaw saint of the right to die movement. He was a renegade who dared to ask, if a suffering person begs for death, who are we to deny them? The man who made death a public spectacle. Dr. Kevorkian was a Michigan pathologist who in the late 1980s became obsessed with what he saw as medicine's cowardice in the face of unbearable suffering. While most doctors tiptoed around the issue, Kevorkian charged full steam ahead. He built the Mercytron, which was a contraption that let patients push a button to release lethal drugs. Kevorkian began offering the Mercytron to the terminally ill. His first high-profile case was Janet Adkins, a 54-year-old Alzheimer's patient who, in 1990, ended her life in Kevorkian's Volkswagen van. The media went wild. Was he a compassionate angel of mercy or a narcissistic ghoul playing God? You don't know Jack, the provocateur on trial. Dr. Kevorkian didn't just assist suicides, as he also taunted the legal system. He filmed his sessions, mailed evidence to prosecutors, and even dared them to stop him. Over a decade he helped at least 130 people die. all while being acquitted in multiple trials until 1998. That year, Dr. Kevorkian injected Thomas Uke, a man with ALS, on national television, 60 Minutes, and then handed the footage to CBS as a challenge. This time the courts didn't blink. Dr. Kevorkian was convicted of second-degree murder and served 8 years in prison before being paroled in 2007. Kevorkian's legacy: martyr or madman? Kevorkian's crusade may have been messy, reckless, and often infuriating, but it worked. Before him, assisted suicide was a whispered taboo. After him, it was a national debate. His antics paved the way for Oregon's Death with Dignity Act, 1994, the first US law allowing physician-assisted suicide. Today, 10 US states and Washington, D.C. have similar laws. Some saw Dr. Kevorkian as a necessary disruptor, while others saw him as a dangerous egotist who turned dying into a circus. The uncomfortable question he left behind. Dr. Kevorkian forced us to ask, if death is inevitable and suffering is unbearable, why must the law stand in the way? His efforts led to changes in the laws. Because of him, we now have regulated legal assisted dying, not in a rusty van, but in hospitals with safeguards. In the end, Dr. Kevorkian was neither a saint nor a demon. He was just a stubborn, flawed man who refused to let people suffer in silence. And whether you think he was a hero or a menace, one thing's certain: the world listened.
Part 5: Assisted Suicide, Legal System and Public Opinion. It's important to note that statistics on assisted suicide often encompass medical aid in dying, MAID, or voluntary assisted dying, VAD. The terminology can vary by jurisdiction. As of mid-2025, assisted dying practices, which can include both euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide, are legal in a growing number of jurisdictions worldwide. This includes countries like Austria, Belgium, Canada, Germany, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, and all 6 states in Australia. In the United States, it is legal in 10 states: Oregon, Washington, Montana, Vermont, California, Colorado, Hawaii, New Jersey, Maine, New Mexico, and the District of Columbia. In a 2018 Gallup poll, it was found that 72% of Americans believe euthanasia should be legal, and 65% believe assisted suicide should be legal. According to Pew Research, in 2022, 68% of the United States Catholics support assisted dying despite Vatican bans. An article in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, 2022, stated that 40% of the U.S. palliative care doctors refuse assisted suicide, citing oath-based ethics. Now, according to the Oregon Health Authority, 2023, Oregon's 25-year data show 80% of aid in dying users cite loss of autonomy as the top reason for assisted suicide. Part 6: Where do we go from here? The debate over assisted suicide isn't just about laws. The debate is about what kind of world we want to live in. Do we value control over our fate above all else, or do we hold life as sacred even when it's racked with pain? One possible answer lies in a balance between mercy and morality, between the right to die and the duty to live. But this needs to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. This controversial subject is important because when it comes to matters of life and death, the stakes are too high for easy answers. So think on and feel on, dear friend, as these complexities need to be given their due process.